So fasten your seatbelt because this is a session about EVs, but also because Michael Dunne is a very compelling speaker on the theme of EVs and batteries because he knows so much, possibly more than anybody I can think of anyway. He has been an auto industry executive himself for much of his career, much of it in Asia. He's lived in China for a lot of time, not now, but he has a really great newsletter called ZoZo Go, and he also has the Driving with Dunne podcast, which is an authoritative place to find out about what's happening with EVs and batteries, and you'll see what I mean. So, Michael.
Thank you, David. So nice to be back here at Techonomy. All right, let's get into it. So I found myself on a Sunday afternoon a few weeks ago at a supercharger station just outside of Del Mar, California. Show of hands, how many people here drive electrics? Yeah, quite a number. Tesla? Yeah, okay, so if you're a Tesla owner, you know there's a certain protocol when you're at the supercharger station, what to do, you know, while your car is charging. Some people go get a coffee, some hang out and play video games, and others will get outside and stretch and walk around. That's an opportunity for me as an investor in electrics and batteries to learn something. So I never miss a chance. If I see somebody holding a coffee and playing on their phone, I approach them. And on this day, there's a woman in her late 20s leaning against her Model 3, coffee and phone. And I went up to her and I said, "What do you think of your 3?" She said, "I love it." And that wasn't the first time I heard that response. Okay, so I said, what do you love about your car? She said, "It's fast, it's modern, it's very, very sexy. Like when I go up and pick up my friends, they were like, 'Oh, you're driving a Tesla.'" Okay, so I said, "Oh, that's terrific. Anything else?" And she said, "Yes, one other thing. You know, it kind of feels good as an American to know that, you know, we're in the lead. We're leading this electric revolution." And I thought to myself, I go, "Okay, Mike, don't say it. But I couldn't help myself. And I said, "Actually, you know what? There's this global race for supremacy in electric vehicles. We're getting our ass kicked by the Chinese and by other. We're in last place right now, actually. We're in last place." So it came out, you know, sort of blurted out. And then she looked at me, and there's a little bit of a long pause, looked down at her coffee, and she said, "Whatever. I just like my Tesla," okay? So I had crossed the line. But I felt like an evangelist or something, and probably I'll feel like one again right now when I'm going to talk about just how dominant China has become in electrics and what it means for us. So this year, be about 10 million vehicles sold, electric vehicles sold globally. China gets 60% of that. Guess what? Europe comes in second with about 3 million, and the US will be lucky to get 10% of the total pie. Now, when you look at that big number from China, you think, oh yeah, they make those cheap and cheerful $5,000 runabouts that don't go very fast and don't go very far, and they're unreliable and they burn everything. No, China today is building, companies like NIO and XPeng are building world-class vehicles that rival Tesla in autonomy and connectivity, riding and handling safety, battery range, and all the rest. So don't think old China, new China. These are impressive vehicles at large numbers. Doesn't stop there. When it comes to batteries, if we take a snapshot of the world, how many people are into batteries here? Okay, so where are batteries made on our planet? All of it's concentrated in this tiny geographic area in Northeast Asia, Japan, Korea, and China. And of that concentration, China takes about 75% of total battery manufacturing capacity. 3 of 4 batteries made globally for cars are made in China. US, kind of like maybe 5%, and that's a joint venture between Tesla and Panasonic. So we don't even have our own battery manufacturers. Is it getting scary yet? Okay, no, it's not, of course not. How did this happen? Well, China, back in 2014, they have this ritual to go to the seaside, Beidaihe, where the leaders of China go and make a strategic plan for the next 10, 20, 30 years. In this case, they put the blueprint together called Made in China 2025. What's that about? We are no longer going to follow the West in innovation and technology. We're going to be the leaders in 5G, in advanced manufacturing, in AI, in electric vehicles, and in autonomous vehicles. How effective has it been? Highly effective. We see the results just 8 years later. They totally dominate electrics and batteries. They're not only flexing their technology muscles, but they're also flexing their geopolitical strength and their military. How many of you are familiar with the 9-dash line? 9-dash line, not too many. So this is something everyone should be aware of starting today. Several years ago, China put out this map and said, if you can see the red dashes that, oh, by the way, include Taiwan, China says that is the boundary of our nation. Those waters all belong to us. Why is that significant? Heavy oil and gas reserves in those seas, but more importantly, one of the most important strategic shipping lanes in the world. Everything that Japan, Korea sends to Europe and back in the United States goes through there. So that's a really bold statement. What else is going on? How did they get so dominant? Well, we were asleep at the wheel. For years, I lived in China, and manufacturers would come to me and say, we need an investment strategy for Asia, so should we put our plant in Shanghai or in Shenzhen? There's a lot of other countries in Asia, but they weren't in the equation. Everyone went on autopilot and put billions and billions and billions of dollars into one country. Kind of fell asleep, yeah? Ukraine, uh-oh, things can go. That was a huge bet that we're making, putting those billions in China. Things can go sideways in a hurry, can't they? This is a cartoon rather, from the Global Times, which is a state media in China. Basically, from the Chinese point of view, who's at fault for the mess in Ukraine? Okay, that's America. All right, that's 1.4 billion people waking up every day learning that that's the narrative to follow. Actually, we're the adversary, we're the cause of the problem. So what comes next? China has devised, if you remember the Hong Kong deal, the Basic Law Declaration, they said, hey, there's a system of democracy and freedom of the press and elections, everything in Hong Kong, British installed, we're the People's Republic of China. We're gonna have something called one country, two systems, right? You're all familiar with that. For 50 years, we're gonna coexist, one country, two systems. And then a couple of years ago, they go, well, let's just do one country. We don't need that second system. And anybody who's lived or worked in Hong Kong shocking what's happened in the last 24 months in that former thriving metropolis for freedom and of expression and democracy. So what can we envision for us, ourselves going forward? I don't want to sound gloomy. I want to sound realistic. Look for the sort of evolution of two independent parallel supply chains in the world. One led by the West and one led by the China, Russia, etc. axis. That's the reality. So it means probably more expensive, longer supply chains, but at least we will have control of our own destiny. And that brings me to some optimism. We're seeing amazing new investments right here in North America, up and down the supply chain for batteries. Startups like Sila Nano here in Silicon Valley. There's one in Michigan I'm an investor in called Our Next Energy. There's also charging station startups as well. Across the board, we're seeing billions of dollars pouring into the United States as we relearn how to do basic manufacturing. This is a great thing. Also, terrific products coming in the pipeline. The Mustang Mach-E just was voted Consumer Reports Car of the Year, surpassing Tesla for the first time. Hummer's coming out, an electrified version of the F-150, America's best-selling car, is coming soon. Good news in terms of products, good news in terms of investments. It's just that we're way at the back of the line, and we need to wake up to the realities of competition and geopolitical tensions. How to think of it? What's your takeaway? We're in a Sputnik moment number 2. The first one being in 1957. Today, right now, as we're sitting here, all we need is the urgency to recognize that challenge. We have all the capabilities, but what's missing, I'm going back to that supercharger station in Del Mar, is what's the urgency, dude? I just like my Tesla. Okay, we have to move a little bit closer to readiness to compete head on. David? Thank you.
One of the other things you were telling me about was the Chinese have now acquired much of the raw materials for batteries. So even if we had the capacity or the desire, neither of which is certain, to build them here, we might not even be able to get the components. Talk about the supply chain stuff a little bit.
Okay, it's really exactly as you described. So in your Mustang Mach-E, if anyone drives one here, the battery comes from where? Well, there will be minerals from Africa and South America that all go across the Pacific to China for refining. Virtually every battery in the world ends up in China for refining for environmental purposes. After those minerals are refined into elements or chemicals that can be put into the cells, they are then shipped to, say, in this case, South Korea, where SK Innovation manufactures the cells and then puts them into a battery pack. Then they're shipped back across the Pacific to Ford's assembly plant and then into the car. Can you imagine a more complex and lengthy supply chain, one that runs right through China every time? So what can we do? The Chinese also own the mines. They own the mines, they own the refinery, they're manufacturing the cells, they're doing the packing. We don't have any of that. We have to, it's a 10-year project. We have to start now with the cells and then gradually build out that supply chain all the way back to the mine. So you're seeing some American companies, including automakers, starting investing directly into those mines in competition with the Chinese.
So when you say the rare earths and such are shipped to China for environmental reasons, what you mean is for unenvironmental reasons.
Correct.
You mean that the Chinese are willing to deal with the dirty shit that we simply won't tolerate. And as a result, we aren't able to participate. Is that what you're saying?
It's exactly the point. And then we have to come to terms with, yes, we want to be environmentally clean, climate matters and all the rest, but there may be some trade-offs there. We need to get our hands dirty a little bit in order to preserve a level of national security. So we're not completely exposed and vulnerable to a foreign power.
What are some of the elements? Is cobalt one of them?
Cobalt, lithium, nickel, those are the main ones. Graphite as well.
And the refining process for all those is really messy.
Very messy.
And environmentally polluting frequently, or what?
Environmentally polluting, and then the China price factor comes in too, right? It's everything. Who was I talking to today was describing how nuts that are grown in Fresno, California are shipped in order to, the nuts could be cracked and then take the nuts out and then shipped back to the United States. What?
Shipped to China for that.
Everything's going to China. It's like, what? Come on. I was wearing a mask a couple of weeks ago. I looked at the logo at the top right-hand corner. It said, what? BYD. I go, oh my God, I know that logo. Wait a second. No, that's China's leading electric car maker. They're making masks. And you go online, you find out the governor of California spent taxpayer money, how much, to buy the masks from BYD, a car factory in China? $1 billion. So it's almost as if we go, oh, it needs to be manufactured. Let's just source it from China. Yeah.
So in other words, if we could get access to the cobalt and all that other stuff, even then we have to be willing to do stuff that maybe we have, as a nation, stopped being willing to do. Is that so? We really have some major shifts in our regulatory, our environmental. I mean, what do we have to do? Talk about what you'd like to see the U.S. do.
I'd just like to see us, okay, what does it take to compete? Our goal is to go electric because there's all kinds of benefits in going electric. So in order to be competitive and be not vulnerable to a potential foreign adversary, some of the things we'll have to do, we'll have to get our hands dirty. We'll have to make some sacrifices. That's just a reality. We can't live in a fantasy.
Does anybody in Washington get that? I mean, it's not something you hear talk about.
No one wants to touch that.
I bet most people here haven't even heard this argument before. How many people here have heard this argument before? Okay, about 15 or 20. I mean, so it's not a known thing outside of the cognoscenti that this is even really true, right?
That's true.
So what?
It's very new, David. All this is new. So just a few years ago, the consent before these geopolitical tension, oh yeah, of course we'll just source it from China. China does this and this, no problem. It's only just in recent weeks and recent months we start to look and say, oh my goodness, look at how exposed we are. And then we're running around, okay, how do we catch up?
Well, you know, and it could be compounded by the fact that we are now denying China a lot of technologies that they consider indispensable to their economy. You know, like semiconductors and all kinds of other stuff. So are we?
Huawei.
Huawei, yeah. But so, I mean, and I'm not saying we're wrong to do that necessarily, but are we then giving the Chinese leverage? I mean, in other words, could they start withholding things from us that up to now they've just sold us because they want the trade? Or is it that bad, or is that probably going too far?
The Chinese are outstanding when it comes to assessing their own leverage. When it comes to business or politics, very good at understanding what their leverage is. So when they hold the crown jewels for battery manufacturing, they understand just how valuable that will be. And I don't think there's anything that we're doing on our side that will shape or dictate what they do. They've already made up their mind. In Xi Jinping's words, there's a once in 150 years opportunity for China to take center stage in the world. Our ambition is to not only lead technologically, but also set the rules for the world. We don't have an interest in joining the established US economic order. It doesn't appeal to us. And oh, by the way, we're the biggest market and manufacturer for so many goods. Why not? Why shouldn't we be the center of this world? So I don't think at this juncture, anything the US does to China is going to change China's trajectory in that regard. They feel very strongly that it's their time. Not the U.S.
But I guess, maybe this is an unnecessary direction, but so they're not going to be able to force us to relent on some of our restrictions, or could they?
I don't think so. I think
okay,
that ship has sailed. I think that ship has sailed, David.
All right. What about somebody here must have questions or a shocking response to this. Okay, over there, yeah.
Charlie Long. I'm a real estate developer and teach courses in sustainable development. How about your sense of where we would put the jobs and the factories?
Good question.
That we need to basically break the supply chain stranglehold that China has over us. And as you probably know, Columbus, Ohio just approved the largest chip manufacturing plant in the world.
Yes.
And there are some movements to have high-tech auto manufacturing in Lansing, Michigan. But where, in your judgment, will all this activity end up?
Bring it back to those states.
To the Rust Belt.
Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. They want, I'm from Michigan originally, they want nothing more than jobs. They feel like the manufacturing base has been hollowed out. And they be ready, they're hungry for the investment. That's where I'd put it.
So this is a way of getting those jobs back.
Well, I guess the path to electrification is a little more complicated than we thought. But anyway, Michael, that was so good, and I hope people will grab you and interrogate you further.
Thank you so much,
you have a lot more to say we don't have time for, but thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you.